Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today we're talking about something that a lot of people carry around, and a lot of people carry a lot of shame around, and as binge eating. Um, I like talking about long-term results, and a lot of you know that, as I've talked about many times before, if you're somebody who struggles with binge eating, that doesn't just go away by starting a new diet or trying harder or just putting more effort in, right? It's not something that just fixes and goes away overnight. And so uh, you know it's binge eating is really prevalent in today's day and age, and the pressures to fit certain ways in our culture, where a lot of women are pressured to look a certain way and weigh a certain amount, and anything outside of that is considered unhealthy or manly or just not like feminine, not womanly, right? Not ladylike. And so much focus puts their self-worth coming from their physical body. And so today I want to talk about binge eating, like why it might be happening, how to know if you're binge eating versus just overeating as a whole, and how we can start overcoming that, how we can actually start doing something about that. And maybe you've been here before, where you enter the kitchen cluttered with the remnants of like snacks, and your heart is heavy with guilt and the lingering questions of like, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I just be stronger? Why can't I just do better? Right? These are all things, I'm sure that many of you have probably different questions that you've asked yourself about yourself numerous times, anytime like a binge eating happens. But before I really dive into that, I want to talk about some statistics, which I know is super exciting, but hopefully these will help put things in perspective and help make things click for you. Right. And studies showed that more than 30 million people in North America suffer from binge eating disorders, which makes it the most prevalent eating disorder on the continent. Eating disorders are also the number one fatal mental health issue on earth. And it's more than just a personal battle. I know oftentimes we think that somehow that we're broken, or that we're not worthy, or that we're failures. But I want you to, the first thing I want to let you know is like, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. Like I said, more than 30 million people just on this continent alone struggle with this exact thing. It's a shared experience. But why? Why does binge eating happen so often? Why are 30 million people struggling with this? Why does it often become this dark shadow that looms over us along the way in our journey? Well, research also shows that the modern diet culture, particularly the restrictive nature that promises rapid results, creates this unrealistic expectation and standards that you then hold yourself to, which then triggers episodes of binge eating when we can't be perfect to that standard. And the whole perfectionism mindset makes you believe that you must be all in or all out, 100% perfect. Otherwise, it's not worth it. You're going to screw up. You're a failure. You're doing something wrong. You're broken. You can't do anything right, et cetera, et cetera. And the more you try to white knuckle and avoid it all, control more and restrict more, the stronger these cravings become. And eventually it overwhelms you, right? This is why I always say that if the methods are unsustainable, so are the results that come with it. If you want results that last forever, you need to use a method that you can sustain forever. The goal of getting in shape and losing fat is to stay in shape and not gain the weight back. So if you're tired of struggling, losing a little bit here and there only to gain it back again, you need to deal with these expectations and standards and stop restricting so much. So many of these diets and detoxes, like Ideal Protein, Isogenics, Weight Watchers, they're all preying on your insecurities to fill their pockets. And then they leave you feel like you're broken while making you feel like you're the problem so that you come back and buy their stuff again. But the reality is that there are long-term consequences to short-term stupidity, which is where what a lot of these programs are. And I don't want you to find yourself in that position. The reality is that those long-term consequences come from these short-term decisions, right? We hop in this new 8-week program, or in literally the case of my group right now, this 21 day challenge. The problem is that the most challenges are built upon weight loss and that they reward unhealthy behaviors to lose as much weight as possible so that you win the prize. That's why I structured this challenge a lot differently. But I've worked with hundreds of women over the years who have struggled with their relationship with food, their self-body image, self-worth, exercise, and just overall have a hard time accepting themselves and self-love. And the more you restrict, the more you cut carbs, the more you cut fats, the more you cut sugar, the more you restrict, the less you can resist. And it only compounds and exacerbates the problem. And any plan that tells you to remove entire food groups or avoid anything in general is a huge red flag. There's a reason why a lot of people like to say, oh, everything in moderation. But what does moderation look like? And that's something I answer inside this group. And that's something that I talk about quite often, because everyone eats for different reasons, right? Some people eat for coping mechanisms. Stress is a huge one. Some people are eat out of boredom. Like it's a literal form of entertainment because they're just bored. One of my clients, I won't say who, just for obvious reasons, uses food to find solace in challenging times. She lost her son. Her son passed away, and food was the only thing that would feel good in any moment. So of course she attached to this, like emotionally. Of course she attached to food as this, and 5 years later she gained well over 100 pounds. But like a lot of people like to say, oh, you just need to want it more. You just need to work harder. Oh, you're just being lazy. And any health professional, I use that term loosely, that tells you that you're just being lazy or you just don't want it bad enough. They're dumb. Like they're at such a high level of ignorance that is baffling to me. It's not about wanting it more. The average woman will try 121 diets in their lifetime. That that's a lot of attempts, right? That's a lot of attempts at trying to lose weight. That tells me that that tells me the opposite of what the standard message is, that you're lazy. No, like, are you kidding me? You're trying 121 times in your lifetime on average. That tells me you're resilient. You want it really badly, that you're not lazy, that you're willing to try and try and try and try again. Right. And so this whole narrative around just wanting it more or you're just being lazy is just so ignorant. People use food for many different reasons. Some people use it for celebration. Some use it for just to feel good, bury their emotions. Some people use it to cope with stress. Some people do it because they're coping with loss, like literal loss, right? Another client was forced onto her first diet at 9 years old by her mom because she thought it would be fun. And now, hey, guess what? 4 decades later, she's 48 years old. That's 4 decades of struggling with nutrition, struggling with health, struggling with body image issues, self-worth issues, body image, like I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, right? So again, there's so many people, there's so many reasons why people might struggle with binge eating. So it's important to grasp the concept and the idea that you are not alone. These are important to talk about because overeating in general, but especially binge eating, is also shown in the research to be the leading causes of things like weight gain, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, PCOS, and all other forms of metabolic disorders and dysregulations of hormones. This is why it's important to look inwards at your behaviors around food, because if you struggle with losing weight long term, no diet or special plan is going to be the answer. You can lose all the weight you want, but if you still struggle with cravings, binge eating, stress eating, emotional eating, once I start, I just can't stop. Then the weight loss will only ever be temporary. It'll never be gone for good because you're still going to struggle with these internal issues that have nothing to do with the plan itself, but everything to do with you and your internal behaviors around food. And this is why it's so important to address these things, because the core of the issues are never actually getting solved. It's like you're trying to build a giant castle on top of a half-built foundation that was meant for a dinky little trailer. Sure, it looks nice, but you know it's not safe and you know it's not going to last. This is why I talk a lot about getting your schmeck in check, which I know sounds really silly. So it's just an abbreviation. sleep, stress, hunger, hormones, metabolism, mindset, energy, and cravings. If these things aren't in proper order, no amount of dieting will ever fix your problem. They'll never go away because your foundation is shaky at best, right? I talk a lot about the stories that you tell yourself, and that includes stories about the behaviors around food, right? There will always be that dark voice in the back of your mind that rationalizes the decision that you're about to make. It'll always make the bad decision sound like a good decision, like a good idea, right? There's always going to be that voice that rationalizes the decision you're about to make. And it's damn powerful. It's very persuasive, charismatic, it's fun. It's this voice that's a master at convincing you that the unfavorable decision to make, the one that is not in your best interest, is in fact the best decision for you to make. And then you're going to make that decision. You beat yourself up after the fact, saying like, "Why did I do that? I should have done better. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? I shouldn't have done that, et cetera, et cetera." Right? This is just it's tough. Um, it's not easy, and you're not alone. A lot of the things that I'll be talking about later are things that I've personally struggled with and have helped hundreds of women over the past decade kind of come to terms with. Um, but before I really get into that, I really need to draw a fine line here as well, because there is a difference between binge eating and just regular overeating, right? Overeating looks like I had two desserts instead of one, or I drink 3 cans of soda a day, or I go out to eat, I order out, I go to McDonald's or Subway or Starbucks every single morning, right? You eat fast food on a regular basis, and yes, by the way, Starbucks, even their breakfast sandwiches, still considered fast food. It's a lot of calories with zero nutrient density. And a lot of people will, I know a lot of people, I worked at Starbucks for 5 years. Every morning, like clockwork, somebody would come in at like 7 o'clock in the morning. They're rushing out the door and they have like a breakfast sandwich, maybe a muffin or a latte and or a latte. And a lot of the times that alone comes to like 1,000 calories, right? It's some for a lot of people that are trying to lose weight, that's literally half your calorie load by the time it's 7 in the morning. Like, of course, you're hungry later in the day. Of course, cravings rise up, right? But going out to eat is just classic overeating. It's not quite binge eating, right? Or even sitting down and eating a whole bag of popcorn or chips while watching Netflix. Or you're eating due to stress, or you're putting yourself in situations where eating out is just easy to do. You're going out with friends a lot. You're going out to drinking lots of alcohol. Believe it or not, like there's a ton of calories that I'm not going to get too deep into alcohol, but you're just putting yourself in situations where overeating becomes easier, and so it's something you do, right? That's just overeating. Binge eating is things like I tell myself I'm only going to eat one, but I eat the whole bag instead. Or once I start, I just can't seem to stop. Or eating a whole cake to yourself in one sitting, feeling guilty, which then perpetuates more eating well beyond the point of feeling stuffed. You feel sick. You stopped enjoying the food a long time ago. That was me for a really long time. Another thing that I did as well, sneaking food into your room to eat it in secret so no one can see. That's what I did growing up a lot. Or another one that I've done before is wanting food so badly and you feel guilty just from the desire, like you feel pre-guilt. Like I want the food and I feel guilty for wanting it. And so I throw it out in the garbage. And then a couple hours later, I go back to it, pull it out of the garbage so I can still eat it. That was me on more than a few occasions. But yeah, pulling like feeling guilty about wanting the food. So I throw it in the garbage only to later pull it out of the garbage and eat it anyway. Yeah, that's awesome. But that's part of it. And it's important to understand the difference between overeating and binge eating. Everyone overeats from time to time, but binge eating is not the same as overeating. So it's important to make that line very distinct and clear. And a lot of times, binge eating is also accompanied by compensatory behaviors, like I'll make up for it tomorrow. Like I'll go to the gym and I'll do an extra hour of cardio to burn off the extra calories that I ate this today, right? or like I just won't eat tomorrow, or I'll just eat a lot less, right? I'll fast until dinner. Yeah, that'll solve my problems. And the attempt to try and compensate one extreme with another extreme oftentimes just keeps you in that cycle or that pattern of binge, restrict, with no real progress ever actually being made. Now, if you're struggling with binge eating behaviors, it is treatable, right? There are therapists who specialize in these behaviors. I'm not a therapist. I'm not I'm not I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who can prescribe. That's just a disclaimer I have to talk about, that there are people who specialize in these behaviors. I can talk about my experiences with over 400 clients. 380 of them have been women over the past more than a decade, almost a decade and a half at this point. So these are just behaviors that I've picked up on, and strategies and things that I've talked about that have helped them. But it's important to note that therapy is not for broken people. It does not mean that you are broken. It is not a sign that there is something wrong with you. The brain is the most complicated thing in the entire known universe. That is a fact. We know less about the brain than we do about planets 10,000 light years away, right? We know less about our own body. So don't beat yourself up over not understanding how the brain functions and how the brain wires and our experiences and thoughts and beliefs and behaviors. Don't beat yourself up for not understanding why you struggle with these things. There's nothing wrong with you. But just like when your car is broken, you go to a mechanic, you go to an accountant for taxes, or a plumber for your pipes, and so on and so forth. Therapists are for those that recognize that there's something about themselves that they do not understand. So they go to someone for help, just like those other examples. You go to somebody else to help because you don't understand how to do it yourself. That's all this is. That's all therapy is for. I'm a big fan of therapy. It helps me get a deeper understanding of myself so that I can then grow into the person that I want to be. So I'm going to talk about the 6 reasons why you binge. And again, this is not me judging you. This is simply me, after working with hundreds of women for over a decade, helping with these issues that are perpetual, unfortunately, especially with how diet culture is right now, with this pressure to cram yourself into molds and just to feel like you're worthy in this way. The thing is that you are worthy. You've always been worthy. It's not worth Being worthy is not something you build or a mountain to climb. It's always been there. And that gets revealed when you stop focusing your thoughts, time, and energy and decisions on what other people tell you that you should or shouldn't do or eat or drink or think or believe. These things, I gotta do this, I must do that. Like, this is how you do it. Optimize, all must haves. I must, or I should, right? Self-worth comes when you recognize that that doesn't matter, and you try to force and trying to force yourself, or letting society force you into a mold that just might not be built for you. And a prime example of this is that I've had some clients in the past that believe that they're surrounded by naysayers, or believe that they're somehow alone. They think that they're working in an environment that is dominated by men, and so as a woman, they have to prove them wrong, and prove to everybody who doubted them wrong, and that they'll finally feel good enough if they can just prove them wrong. Like, once I get there, once I achieve this, I'll have proved everyone wrong, whoever doubted me, whoever looked down on me on what I was trying to do, and I'll finally have the validation from them. But there's a problem with this line of thinking, is that's the fact that nothing in the external world will ever fill an internal void. Nothing external will ever fill an internal void. And now I know that sounds kind of woo woo, and believe me, I hated the woo woo stuff so much, to the point it was beyond dumb. But it wasn't until I hit rock bottom in my own journey that I had to look inward. And that really changed my life. And it's what I help my clients with as well. So I need to preface this with the fact that there is no judgment here. Uh, it's that whole, like, I know what to do, but I know what to do, but I just can't do it. And it's funny because, like, it works both ways. I know what I shouldn't do, but I just can't stop myself. And that's the parts that we're talking about today. So here are 6 reasons why you might be binge eating. And these are not going to be true across the board. They're not going to be true for everybody. I don't like blanket statements. Just like these are just 6 reasons that I've come across as a trainer, as a coach. And the first 2 are big. But I personally don't have a ton of experience with dealing with them, but I have picked up on the patterns, talked with a few other coaches. They agreed. So I'm mentioning them here. And then the other 4, I have a lot more experience with. I can really dive into. So reason why you binge eat, number 1, it's generational. Um, genetics can determine a lot of things. Genetics can determine brain pathways and appetite control. Like if a mom struggles with food during pregnancy, it literally gets coded into your genes, right? Earlier I talked about like just environment in general, but earlier I talked about how my client was, her mom put her on her first diet at 9 years old, right? That wasn't a thing that they can control. That was purely their mom kind of putting that on them. Or if mom struggles with binge eating growing up and a poor relationship with food, stress eating, et cetera, that gets coded into them because children build their reality and their identity based on watching you interact with the world, right? By watching you, you set the example for them. And so if you're somebody who struggled with binge eating, there's a really good chance that your parents probably struggled with that too. Another thing that comes to mind is like the clean the plate club. Like I was always taught that I can't leave the table until the plate is clean. Meaning I'm being forced to overeat beyond the point of discomfort just because someone told me that it's disrespectful not to, and that you're a bad child, you're a bad kid if you don't clean your plate, right? And so now we learn to eat everything that's put in front of us because that's what we were taught to do, and if I don't, I'm a bad person for doing so. A lot of these are just learned behaviors from parents, right? If your parents believe that there are good or bad foods, guess what? You're going to adopt that belief too. It's not intentional. Like they're not intentionally setting you up for failure or for a lifetime of struggle. They're doing the best they can in a world that they understand and the reality that they have created for themselves. And that's all anyone can ever do is do their best in the world as they understand it. And if you fundamentally understand the world differently than how I fundamentally understand the world, then we're going to have 2 very different experiences. It's it, it's not your fault that you are where you are. We live in a world where it is massively confusing to just exist and trying to live healthy. No one could make up their mind on what is healthy and what is unhealthy. And then you have things like Lay's potato chips right in the center going, hey, bet you can't have just one, like literally taunting you, right? So it's not your fault that you are where you are. It is not your fault that you find yourself struggling and that you're stuck. But it is your responsibility to take control of it and change it for yourself and change for yourself because the power is in your hands to change the trajectory of your life for the next generation. So the generational struggle ends with you. It's not easy. It is incredibly hard. Any sort of big change in your life is very difficult, but it is necessary. The second thing that I recognize, the second reason why you might be binge eating is pretty simple to understand. It's the coping shame cycle, right? Bad food tastes good and feels good when you're stressed to eat these foods. Then the bad foods therefore make you a bad person. Therefore, now you feel guilt and shame over eating the food. And now that you feel this intense negative emotion, it makes you want to eat more, right? I eat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I eat kind of cycle, right? But here's the thing: food has no moral value. It's just a thing. Eating is an experience, and no experience is good or bad. It is you, the individual, who places and labels good or bad onto the experience and then associate yourself with those experiences. Um, Using myself as an example, because the first thing that comes to mind is I've had interactions with people who lost their mom. For those of you who don't know, I lost my mom back in 2010 due to a lot of health complications. I'm not going to go super deep into that. But the way we label the experiences dictates the trajectory and the outcome of where that experience can lead. And this is what I mean. I've met other people who've lost their mom. Unfortunately, a lot of people have. And this person was very much the kind of person who stooped in that and let that be the defining feature, because she lost her best friend. She was an emotional wreck. And she would stress eat emotionally. She would let all this because her mom passed away. And because of that, she no longer had a mom to take care of her. She no longer had the mom to look after her and teach her and be there for her. And she lost her emotional rock and her emotional anchor, just like me. But she let that experience be such a negative driving force for her that it stopped her from living her own life, which is really unfortunate. Um, Whereas for myself, and again, this isn't to say that, oh, I'm better than anybody, but it's the perspective, right? It's the way we look at it. And for me, that's the whole reason why I do what I do. I help moms get control of their health so that they don't leave their children early like my mom did. My mom was 48 years old when she passed away. And so that's the driving force behind why I do what I do. Is So I turned what could have been the most negative experience in my entire life, and no one would have, and I don't blame her, by the way. No one would blame her. No one would blame me if I for a long time used my mom passing away as the reason why I'm in such a sour mood all the time. No one would blame me. They'd understand. And so it's not the experience itself, it's how you label the experience. There are no good or bad foods. There are no foods that inherently store fat or burn fat. They do not exist. And attaching morality to the experience of eating food, that is one of the biggest drivers behind self-sabotage, next to the last point that I'll talk about today. But it's huge. It's a really big part of it. But it's you who places the experience, the quality of the experience, the label of good or bad on the food. And so when you attach morality to food, of course, when you eat the food that you quote unquote shouldn't eat, which I already talked about, how the more you restrict and the more you try to avoid, the more you tell yourself you can't have something, the more you want it, the stronger those cravings get. So the more you tell yourself you can't have it, the more you're going to want it. And then when you have it, because you tell yourself you can't have it because it's a bad food, you're going to think you're a bad person because you gave into it, that you did something naughty or dirty. Right. So those are the first two that I talk about. It's this the coping shame cycle, and then the first one, being it's generational, that your parents play a really big role into how you feel about food as an adult. Now we're going to get into the three that I can talk forever on, that I get really excited to talk about. And now, for those who are in the challenge, you're going to understand part of why I talk about this a lot. So reason number three as to why you binge is because it's just based on restriction. You're just letting yourself get too hungry. This is where people come to me being like, "Oh, Chris, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day. I did Ideal Protein, which, by the way, Ideal Protein forces you to eat so little food that they have a warning label telling you not to exercise." Which we know that exercise is a really good, healthy thing to do. So if a company is telling you, hey, spend $500 a month to eat our dumb little shakes. Oh, by the way, you're eating so little, you can't do the thing that's super healthy for you. That should light every red flag there is. Every single red flag should be going off in your head at that point. Right. But things like Weight Watchers, Optavia, Isogenics, or even something as simple as, it's what my friend told me it's what I need to do in order to lose weight. Yeah, all of that is just really restrictive. It sounds awful saying, no, I can't eat carbs because carbs are bad and stuff like that. And people get stuck in this mentality that carbs are somehow the devil and that they're going to make you fat and die and all that sort of thing. But like, man, if you're a grown adult and you don't have, actually, even if you have insulin resistance of PCOS, I still recommend eating more carbs. If you're yeah, there's really no reason for it unless you have specific issues like specific cancers. If you're eating less than 100 carbs as an adult, there's a problem. That ain't good. That's not going to lead anywhere positive. It's going to suck, especially if you're a mom going through going through menopause. Like if you're a woman like who's going through menopause, low carb is the worst thing you could do for part of your health in so many different ways. I have entire podcast episodes on that. I'm not going to get too much into it. But 1,200 calories is the recommendations of a toddler. So if you're a grown adult trying to cram yourself down to 1,200 calories, of course your cravings are building up and building up and building up, right? And in my opinion, anything under 1,600 calories for an adult is borderline starvation. Like it is, at no point should you need to go that low. Obviously, there are some exceptions. Like if I have a woman who's like 4'11", 90 pounds soaking wet, yeah, they're going to be a little bit less calories. There's always exceptions to the rule, so please don't take that as a blanket statement. But that being said, if you're an average adult who's like 5'4" or more, 1,600 calories is truly terribly low, and we need to be eating more. The easiest way to explain it is the body's just not getting the energy required to operate, right? Everything in your body requires energy to do the thing it's designed to do, from breathing, thinking, chewing your food, your heart beating, your liver doing what liver does, your kidney doing kidney things, your stomach acid production, your sex hormone production, any hormone production, but any of that. Every single thing that goes on in your body requires energy. Calories are energy, right? Energy, calories, calories is just the name that we gave the amount of energy that's contained in food. That's it. So like 100 calories is 100 energy. Think about it that way. It's exactly the function of what it does. But this is also why that you shouldn't be just snacking on little things throughout the day and grazing all day, because you're never actually eating enough food to bring enough energy to actually do the thing that your body needs it to do. So you never actually feel satisfied. So you eat food, but then you get hungry again 30 minutes later. So you're thinking about food all day. The cravings build up. As soon as you get home and relax, it's all over. Right? So that's the first half of restriction. When you restrict just calories as a whole, of course you're going to get hungry. Of course you're starving. Of course you have cravings. Of course you start going to the binge eating, because of the fact that you're so restricted that eventually, like, you're always going to lose that battle. If your body needs energy, it's going to get it. Right? It's going to make you sabotage, so you go get it. Now, the second half of restriction, and this is where it really becomes relevant for the challenge. So the lack of nutrients from real food. Your body needs micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals to operate at a cellular level, in which case the average adult has 37 trillion cells. All of them require nutrients. Almost all internal issues that arise in the body comes from a lack of micronutrients, right? Chronic fatigue, migraines, headaches, muscle cramps, tummy aches, indigestion, like all of these things, lightheadedness, and inability to fall asleep or stay asleep, anxiety sometimes. All of these can come from a lack of certain nutrients, along with hundreds of other things. Pretty much any negative side effect that you feel from your body on a day-to-day basis, a lot of times, like 99% of the times, can get associated back to just some sort of lack of nutrient. And this is where cravings really come into play, because the body wants these things. Because when it comes to cravings, there's only two reasons why cravings ever really show up. One, it's based in hunger, like I already talked about, or two, it's based in a nutrient deficiency. This is where it becomes relevant for the challenge, because this is a long-winded way of saying it. So I'll cycle back. I promise this will make sense. Back in the day, humans are very, very weak in the animal kingdom. Everything can kill us. The only reason why we're at the top of the food chain is because we can think, communicate, and we have thumbs. That's it. Everything else, in every other category, most animals will trump us, right? And so since things like sugar, fat, and salt are essential for survival, your body actually has now developed a cravings because it goes, hey, when I find sugar, fat, and salt, especially together, I need to eat as much as humanly possible because something else might want that and it will win that fight. If I want to eat that sugar, fat, and or salt, something else is going to want it as well, and it's going to beat me in a fight for that thing. So I'm going to consume as much of it now, get as much as I can, hoard it for myself. That's the internal biological reason for cravings and stuff like that. And so the example I usually use is, oh, hey, I'm deficient in iron. What has iron? Red meat. Where can I find red meat? Oh, yeah, pepperoni on pizza. And that way I'm getting my iron, my sugar, fat, and salts all in one go. Craving pizza. There you go. So this is why when I talk about why the challenge focuses so heavily on protein and fiber, because natural protein sources and natural fiber sources tend to be the most nutrient dense foods that you will find on Earth. No other foods on Earth has as many nutrients as something like red meat, like a steak, like a top sirloin steak. The amount of nutrients that's actually found within the zinc, especially, is so important. Some magnesium, omega-3s, especially in grass-fed beef, but specifically the cholesterol, which, my God, I could go on forever about why cholesterol is not actually that bad of a thing. And if you want, I will absolutely talk about that. But this is already going to go long enough, so I'm just going to keep going. Choline, vitamin B12, which can only be found in animal products, and the protein and the healthy fats. All of these things help, one, fill you up so you feel less hungry throughout the day. And if you feel less hungry throughout the day, guess what? You're going to eat less food because you're thinking about food a lot less because you're not as hungry. And then also the nutrient density. So now you're checking off both those boxes. Natural fiber sources do the same thing. Fruits and vegetables do the exact same thing. They fill you up. They're extraordinarily nutrient dense, as well as all the other health benefits that come with having a high fiber diet. So this is why focusing on protein and fiber really help with nighttime cravings. The fourth reason why you might be binging is it's based on expectations, right? My friend lost X amount of weight, so I should too. Or they expect I should be losing weight every single day, or I should never hit plateaus. If I hit a plateau, I need to restrict harder. They think that weight loss is a straight line and that they'll never have scale fluctuations, right? If I'm not losing 2 pounds or more a week, it's too slow, or this is taking too long. This is the problem with expectations is if you're expecting to lose a ton of weight fast, best of luck. Now, here's the thing. Again, like I talked about earlier, all of these fads are going to talk about how rapid weight loss is realistic for them because you'll go onto them, you'll eat very little food, you'll lose a lot of weight really quickly, and you'll be like, wow, I lost so much weight so fast. And then you'll balloon back up, gain all the weight back, and be like, oh, you know what? Ideal Protein or Weight Watchers worked before. I'm going to go back to that. And that's what they want. Because they know that if they promise fast results and they deliver on fast results, by the way, results for them is the number on the scale, not your body fat percentage. So you'll do the keto diet. And because carbohydrates hold on to water, a lot of water, you cut carbohydrates completely in the first week, you lose 10 pounds, you're ecstatic beyond belief. So you now reinforce this false expectation, but then you stagnate because the water weight dropped off. And so now you lose maybe 14 pounds and you plateau hard because you lost all the water weight you were going to lose. So you lost a lot of weight very, very quickly. That excited you. But then you hit a wall because you lost the water weight. And now you hit a plateau. And now you're no longer going in line with the expectations you had. And therefore it's not working. You're doing something wrong. XYZ, hit the screw up button and it all comes crashing down. And I'll just start over again on Monday. Right. But here's the thing. You need to do things without expectation. Healthy things are healthy things to do, regardless of the results you're getting. So do them without expectation. When you do things without expectation, here's the thing. When we're the reason why the habits that I chose within the challenge are the habits that I chose are because these are the fundamental principles that have worked across more than 400 clients for over a decade. Everyone knows, based on the things that I've talked about, eating more protein, a really good idea. Very healthy for you. Eating more fiber is beyond healthy. It is extraordinarily powerful at making you feel better and lose weight and feel better, reduce risk of cancer, stabilize cholesterol levels, the LDL cholesterol levels, helps with blood sugar regulation, stuff like that. We know that walking, that once you hit that 7,500 steps a day mark, your risk of all cause mortality drops by 60%, meaning your risk of dying from any natural causes drops by 60% by hitting that 7,500 step mark. So walking more is probably a healthy idea, a really, really good idea. Exercise, the most powerful defense against all known illnesses and sicknesses and diseases. PCOS, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, osteopenia, osteoporosis, joint pain, all these things, and so much more. And more than 70% of all known cancers can be negated with resistance training. So we know that resistance training is healthy for you. We know all of these things are good for you, regardless of what your goal is, regardless of if you get results or not, regardless of if you lose weight or not. So if you're doing these things and then getting mad that it's not working or it's going too slow, and so you throw in the towel, it's like, okay, but those are still good for you to do regardless of the results. So still do those things, but maybe make some tweaks elsewhere and we can experiment and play around and find out what's going on. But quitting because you're not getting people love to throw around the term, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, which means you need to, but which is technically correct. But a lot of the times when we're not losing weight fast enough, that false expectation isn't being met. And so we ask ourselves, why bother? If you go into a month going, you know what? My friend lost 10 pounds this month, but I only lost 5. I'm 5 pounds down, but because my friend lost 10 in the same time period, I'm doing something wrong. I'm failing. This isn't working. And they throw in the towel. They throw in the towel, they get the pizza, the ice cream, and they go out and on a binge and start binge eating. But you're 5 pounds down. Now imagine you went into that same month and expected to lose 2.5 pounds, but you still lost 5. Suddenly, you doubled your expectation, and now you're ecstatic because your expectation was lowered and more realistic. So now you're ecstatic, even though it's the exact same 5 pounds. It was your label, your expectations that changed. Now suddenly you're ecstatic that it's 5 pounds. And that's why expectations are a huge part in binge eating. Number 5, it's based on emotion. The fifth reason why we binge is emotion. We're emotional animals. We're feeling things all the time, whether you're aware of them or not. And this is why it's very cliche for therapists to say, feel your feelings, or how does that make you feel? And because oftentimes we close when we're feeling good, when we have all these positive emotions, we feel good and open, and we're living life, we're loving it. But as soon as negative emotions show up, we shut the door, hoping to keep them out. But instead, all we do is hold them in. We bottle it up. We literally close the door because we're afraid that it's going to come in when it's already in. I'm already feeling this way. And so closing the door is already too late. And what this does, it ends up being like holding a beach ball under the ocean. Eventually, you're going to get tired and it's going to explode in your face and you're going to go binge. Right? So how do we deal with these emotions in a more positive way? Like this thing, all emotions are meant to be felt, all of them. So don't shun them away. Make space for them, right? Like if you have a kid and a dog and the dog dies and your kid's sad and cries about it, do you tell that kid, no, we don't do that here. You need to not feel those things. You're not allowed to cry. We don't do that in our house. Now go back inside and be less sad. It doesn't really work. Instead, what do? You sit there and go, you know what? It's fine. Like it's okay to be sad. I'm right here with you. Go ahead and cry. Hold space for your emotions. It's tough and it's okay to cry. This is what we tell kids, but we don't allow ourselves to do this. So do the same for yourself. All emotions are meant to be felt. And like the positive, this thing is like, think about how positive emotions work, right? Positive emotions come and go just as long as you give space for them to do so. You feel that, you bask in it, you feel it, and then eventually it goes. You're not angry forever anytime someone cuts you off in traffic. It's just there. It happens. 20 minutes later, you feel good again. So, one of the most powerful ways to deal with emotional eating is to journal. And again, I know a lot of the times this sounds very woo woo, and I was very against it for a very long time. It wasn't until this past year that journaling became one of those powerful tools I've ever used. Despite the fact that I've been teaching other people to do it for years, I just never did it myself. Um, Sometimes we treat others better than we treat ourselves, right? A lot of people understand that. But and just ask yourself two questions: what are you feeling, and why are you feeling it? And answer those questions. Like, what are you feeling right now, and why are you feeling it? What caused it, and what do you feel about that? And treat it like you're just ranting to a friend, right? Like you go to him, like when a friend goes, "Man, hey, you doing okay? You don't look too good." And you're just like, "Man, you would not believe the day I've had. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Here we go. Boss yelled at me, stubbed my toe. Someone cut me off in traffic, XYZ. All these things happen." And then you eventually go, ah, it feels good. It feels good to get it all off your chest. We go to mechanics for car maintenance. We go to the gym for physical maintenance. Use journaling as your form of daily emotional maintenance. A lot of the times we just need to make space and put space and time in between you and the food you're going to go binge with, right? We're just putting time there. We're not denying the food. We're not saying, no, you can't have this. What we're doing is we're getting you in a better headspace by putting time in between you and that action, right? We're interjecting the emotional response, the emotional eating with emotional writing. Write down first, then go eat it if you still feel that desire, right? We're making it a conscious choice rather than an unconscious reaction. And that's going to go a long way. And at the end of the day, if at the end of that writing session, you still feel the need for it, go ahead. I mean, chances are you're probably in a better headspace. You're not going to overdo it. We're going to allow that kind of, like I said, moderation, right? But the idea is that we're just giving yourself permission to eat the thing if you choose to do so, not react with that outcome, right? And lastly, and I talk about this a lot, number 6 is it's just based on your identity. The language we use to talk to ourselves matters a lot. And a lot of people truly believe deep down that this behavior is just a part of who they are. This is where self sabotage truly stems from. Because if I believe I'm a 6 out of 10 healthy person, but I start getting 10 out of 10 results, my internal thermostat is going to turn on and be like, hey, we're not a 10 out of 10, we're a 6 out of 10. So let's come back. Here's a binge eat. Go binge. This is who you are, right? Like a thermostat on the wall. If the temperature starts getting too hot, your thermostat turns on and pulls you back down. If you're somebody who identifies like I'm a binge eater, I'm a dieter. If I'm a binger, if you identify, hey, I'm a binger, and I go 3 weeks without binging, your internal dialogue goes, hold on, something's wrong. We're binge eaters. This is what we do. So go binge now because this is what you need. This is who you are, right? So right now, what you're doing is scary. It's not who we are. This isn't who I am. Go binge eat. I'm a dieter. Hey, look, I lost the 30 pounds I wanted to eat. I wanted to lose. Amazing. You know, oh, wait, hold on. I'm a dieter. But if I successfully reach my goal, I'm no longer a dieter. Therefore, we need to gain the weight back so I can keep being what I think I am. And that is a dieter. Right. Earlier, I talked about doing things without expectations. And this is where a lot of identity can actually start changing, is because sleep, stress management, more protein and fiber, proper hydration, more nutrient dense foods, walking more, lifting weights are all healthy things to do, regardless of the outcome. Right. It's just what healthy people do. So if you're telling yourself, oh, I just want to be a healthy person, I want to be healthy, I want to be healthy, but you're doing those things, guess what? You are healthy. Your body just hasn't physically represented it yet. But keep doing the things. Otherwise, you're no longer a healthy person, because healthy people don't just quit. So if you want to do the things without expectation, that's how you can start shifting your identity away from, oh, I'm lazy, I'm a failure, I'm a binger, and how we can shift it away from that to, oh, I am healthy. I'm someone who treats my body with love and respect. And eventually, when you do the actions that healthy people do, regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of the results, eventually you just deposit enough proof to your brain that this is not who you are anymore. Eventually, your identity begins to shift. That voice of, I'm not worthy, that voice will never go away. I want to make that clear, that even when your identity shifts, it'll never completely go away. I still hear it from time to time, often actually, but it's not nearly as loud or commanding as it used to be. But it starts with visualizing who it is that you want to be and understanding what that version of you is doing consistently on a day-to-day basis. And then you doing those things. This is why I'm a big fan of the question, who do you want to be? And how does that person live their life? Because this is how you start shifting your identity. You're the current you to the version of you who has that undeniable stack of proof that you are exactly who it is that you want to be. And look, identity work it's super deep, and this episode has gone on long enough. I talk about identity a truly obnoxious amount. So if you have any questions, reach out. I've got a ton of podcasts and all things identity, mindset, and stuff like that, and language and negative thoughts and how to be more positive, which I know a lot of people talk about, but not a lot of people understand how to do it. I talk about it all the time, and so I'm going to talk about it more during this challenge. But identity is so much deeper, and it really is the root of self sabotage, binge eating, stress eating, and no amount of dieting will ever yield long term results if these things don't get addressed first. Full stop. So that's all for me today. I hope this helps. I hope this answers a few questions. Please reach out. What resonated with you in this episode? What spoke to you? What really stood out to you? I would love to discuss and dive deeper. So yeah, I'll talk next time. Have yourself a wonderful day and take care. Bye bye.